Hello, and thank you for listening to another episode of Goblin Lore. This episode features our final guests from GP Minneapolis back in August. Matt and Jen of Jackal Costuming, here to talk to us about the art of cosplay for our second cosplay episode so far. You'll notice again that the quality of the recording is a little bit off because we had to record in the convention hall. There was a lot of communication and talking around us from people actually playing in the events, and then there were actual loudspeakers being announced over, so you'll catch some of those announcements in the background. We really apologize. We tried to eliminate as much of that background noise as possible. Some of it just isn't able to be cut out. Without any further ado, let's get to the show. That for me, it's such a visually striking medium. It's something that we were mentioning before. Aunt Tessator of Snack Time Cast talks about cosplay as one of the elements of the Oracle, people who bring Magic the Gathering from a game into the real life. And so that to me is just this cool, beautiful way of taking what we love and representing it in the real world. So without any further ado, let's have everybody introduce themselves. So please tell us who you are, where you can be found on the Twitter, and a character or a card that really speaks to something about you that you'd want to identify with.
I'm Matt Wardle, again part of at Jackal Costuming. My individual Twitter is at Scrapper Ferret. For me, the first character that I did, and the one that I'd say I do more often is Jace. He resonates a lot with me, and when I started getting into the game, I kind of started learning, okay, what does each color do? I'm like, blue is, a lot of countering and whatnot, and learning more about how he is really, I'd say, highlights a lot of how I grew up and how I, matured over time, and just a lot of the psychological aspects of what Jace is, because I think he's incredibly misunderstood in terms of is he smarmy? Yeah, sometimes. Is he arrogant? Yeah, sometimes. But that covers up a lot of the, I'd say, deficiencies and hardships that he dealt with. And those are kind of, in some ways defense mechanisms, but there's a lot of fragility underneath with him that, I exude in when I do the character. Although I'd say when I do the character, I'm much more smarmy. Everyone's like, well, what do you got? I'm like, well.
I think that's how he survives as Jace.
That makes sense.
That's your Jace defense mechanism.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to say, that's like a whole other episode, Jace's defense mechanisms. Even though, I'm going to throw it out there right now, it's obviously projection is his number one.
Oh. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's two puns.
Yeah, I mean,
your pun counter's at two.
Pun counter's at two.
Dang.
I'm Jen, and I'm the other half of Jackal Costuming, and I do most of the sewing and a lot of the crafting and stuff, and just because I have the time.
And we'll have photos up of a lot of this too. We know people may have seen it, but it's just incredible work.
Thank you. I got into Magic like a long time ago, and then I got out of it, and then I got back into it because of him, because he wanted to be Jace. So I'm like, oh, well, okay. So, and then I don't play so much, but I'm getting back into playing now, so it's getting there. But I guess actually the first character I really identified with was Danitha, because it's the first time I looked at a character and said, I kind of look like this character, and I'm going to do it. I did that costume. I'm pretty happy with it. So it's not going to last forever, but...
I'm Alex, on Twitter, at AlexanderNewM. And I think the card I'm going to talk about is not so much a personal identification, but Desolation is the first card that was like my favorite card. It's the first card that I really liked the art. And I started playing in '94, so this came 2001. So and I enjoyed the game and the art was neat, but this was really the first card that had art that just I loved. So that is a card that stuck with me.
I'm HobbsQ, and I can be found at HobbsQ on Twitter. Yeah, and I'm going to take a creature here that's not really a named creature for mine. I mean, it is a named creature, but it's not a legendary. It's not really that. For some of the same reasons that you were just talking about, Alex, Psychotalk. It was such a different mechanic and way to kind of try to win a Magic game that it really stuck with me. Like, oh.
And I'm Joe Redeman. You can find me on Twitter at Findhorn, F-Y-N-D Horn. And I have a creature that's kind of similar. My rationale is fairly similar to you, Matt, is Chainer was my first character that I really loved and identified with because similarly, he experiences so much psychological confusion and he deals with literally his darkest thoughts turned real. And we talked about mental health on this show before, and for me, that was something that I dealt with a lot in my life is, that sort of thing. And so you see that moment of whether it's your strength or your weakness in a character reflected, you find that thing to tap into. And that for me was what I saw with Chainer. And I think that's actually a great chance for us to talk more about, you were saying that process of identifying with Jason, your stories about why you identify with Jason. And it seems like there is some rationale for why you choose the characters you choose to cosplay as. It's not just, maybe sometimes it's this will look cool, right? This is going to be a fun crafting challenge. Yeah. But is there the next level for each of them? Are there some that it is just, you go, no, I want to do that because it's going to look sweet?
Isn't that how you got into it, Johnny?
Kind of. Johnny is...
Everybody loves a Johnny.
Yeah, as I've learned more about him, a lot of people have started, and I don't know if it's common within the community as at whole, but a lot of people started referring to him as Cat Dad because he really kind of looks out for everyone. It's like, oh, by the way, I told you this was going to happen. Did you listen to me? No. So I'm going to let you figure this out, or just to really take care of yourself. As I done discussions with someone on a Johnny before, the earlier versions of a Johnny, very fiery, hot-headed, vengeful, and aggressive. And me as a child was very athletically competitive, quote-unquote bloodthirsty. I was the kid, it's like, oh, you stole the ball from me, so, here comes a little payback, and it was very just straightforward, win at all costs, and do what it takes. But as he got older and matured and sees, the world as a bigger, entity and whatnot, and really becoming more of a mentor, a teacher, I'm a dad. I'm actually a father. My son's 12. And there are a lot of things that, I try and impart on him and, teach him. And, he started getting into magic a little bit. And we're both ADHD, so he wanted to be like Dad and be blue-white control trash like I am. But...
just shaking our head.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
When an 8-year-old's, at that time, an 8 or 9-year-old's favorite phrase is in response, something's going on. But we played a little bit more here and there, and I started teaching him aggro because it's a little bit more straight line, a little more, let's get to the point, let's burn it down. But trying to teach him how to be a good winner, how to be a good loser, yes. When I grew up, I was a very sore loser. I'm still not that great at it, but I've taken it in stride, and I always impart to him the two most important words in this game and in life are, it happens. You can't account for everything. You can try to, but you can't. And then the other phrase I tell them is adapt and adjust. Yeah. If something goes wrong, you didn't get to hang out with your friend, adapt and adjust. So in that regard, I've become way more Cat Dad than Jason in that regard. So that, to me, I really have grown to love a Johnny.
Yeah. That really plays off of, the whole idea of acceptance within psychology.
Yeah.
It's the idea that you can focus on what happened, but you can't change what happened, so we're going to move on with that happened, and instead of using the word but, we're going to use the word and.
Yeah.
Yeah. It happened, I can't hang out with my friend, and, what can I do instead? How can I move forward from this? And like you said, it's adapting and it's adjusting.
Right.
It's not getting rid of what happened, it's not trying to change it, it's just trying to say, what can I do now?
Yeah,
my whole life.
Yeah.
So very present moment focused.
Yeah. Because I'm narcoleptic, so I can't work because I can't stay awake. So I sit at home and I make things. Yeah. I can't drive. I can't do much, so I make things. That's how we got here. So I started making things, and he's like, so let's make this. And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Why not? He buys me tools. I make things. I mean, it's cool.
No, I mean, and like you said, it's kind of allowing then for the fact that, what could be a limitation and could lead to kind of despondency, and has for a lot of people, is using that as a strength, and then doing it so that you can still enjoy what you guys get to come and do and share with others, which is just, I mean, your Stormcrow's cosplay is amazing. The mask itself alone,
I didn't make that, so I just...
but just finding, I mean,
Yes.
to me, it's all the crafting pieces. It's finding the right piece. It's acquisition. I mean, we're going to have this stuff up for people to see, but it's just the fact that you're able to do that on your own schedule means that you get to come to an event like this, and we get to see you.
Yeah, it seems like adapting and adjusting is kind of going to be a theme for us here. That's a very similar thing that you guys are saying is your part of your process. I'm curious too, as we talk about the crafting aspect of it, since that's where your biggest inroad into this is. We were talking with Olivia and Sydney about some of the stuff like running around needing thread, this thing popped, or your short circuit in your lights. How do you deal? What's your process for crafting, assembling the materials, for dealing with those things that you can't plan for at events or stuff like that?
I bring, everywhere we go. We went to an anime con once where I just finished a costume for him, and we put it on, and first time out, the zipper came right off. Not a sewing error, the zipper just flew off. And if anyone could have seen my face when it happened, because I'm just like, of all the things that could happen. So we didn't have a way to fix it at that time, but we were still pretty new.
Yeah.
And now it doesn't matter where we go. I have what I call a crash kit that has like snaps and hot glue and pins and needles and thread and everything that I would need to fix anything we have.
Wow.
Except my lights. I can't. I have to take like all the armor apart to fix those. So I'm just like, well.
I'm curious if there's been, since we're on this adapt and adjust, has there been a change for you from when you first started? You talked about that moment of horror in your face when the zipper just flew off. I mean, did that used to maybe tilt you a little bit more?
Oh yeah, I have terrible anxiety. So the idea that something like that would happen again, like, just gets to me. Like, Johnny has had several
Still failures.
Yeah, failures in the last few GPs, so he really stresses me out. But I mean, we adjust, we fix the stilts, we fixed whatever. He at Vegas we couldn't fix the stilts, so he walked around without them, and nobody cared. I mean, It's just like, oh look, it's Cat Dad, it's fine.
Yeah, exactly. and for me, I'd say, maybe 6 or 7 years ago, I would have been not furious, but just really more despondent and more like, I can't believe this bleeping happened, and I don't even want to wear it, and blah, 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 blah. But, when it popped, I mean, the whole brace came out. For a moment, I'm going, oh my God, I'm going to break my ankle. I'm actually going to break my ankle. And, everyone kind of, grabbed me under the underarm, really propped me up. I'm like, okay, good, no, I'm fine. And then we took it off, and let's adapt and adjust. I'm just going to go have fun. It's like, all right, you can either see my shoes or take a shot from the shins up. All right, it looks great. I'm a lot shorter now, but, and even as...
Who's to say, though, that Johnny doesn't wear Keds or something? I mean, come on.
You're right.
He's got to have, like, fashionable and comfortable shoes.
I was trying to think of, like, I would guess he would wear Pumas.
Yes!
No.
Oh, man.
I really took that into account, and you even said that it made a big difference in your demeanor, that I didn't lose my cool.
Oh yeah, because I would have totally lost it.
So yeah, the right one busted in Vegas, like, okay, great, we repaired it. Then the left one busted in Pittsburgh. I'm going, are you kidding me? But hey,
we were at least able to fix the one in Pittsburgh. We wrapped tape around it.
Right.
It was
but
okay.
I think, back to the larger question, has it changed over time? Absolutely. In what's available to us at any given time. And like I said, Dragon Con has repair stations. I'd say with the GPs, though, it depends on the size of the GP and how many people are there. Like Vegas, there were, 19, 20 plus of us there. So it's like, hey, this went wrong. Who knows how to fix it? Who has the materials to fix it? Same with Seattle. Pittsburgh, it's like 4 or 5 of us. That's a small one. So, again, we were local, like, okay, if we really needed to something, we go home, come back later the next day, it is what it is. But that, I think, is how a lot of the cosplay community at large is developing more that way in terms of camaraderie, going, hey, I know how to do this. It's almost like its own weird barter system where you don't really have to give anything back. It's like, you know what? If you need a favor, you did me a solid, I got you. You've been there, I got you. Any way, shape, or form, we all pay it back to one.
It seems like that is a pretty small but close-knit community of creators. Is that what you guys find too?
At least for Magic, yeah. It's not a huge cosplay scene in Magic, so most of us know each other in some way, or we've connected in some way. And this is not even just like the U.S. It's like cross-country. I mean, Nadine's obviously not from the U.S. The girl from Mexico.
Yep. Dom is from Switzerland as well.
So I mean, it's
friends up in Canada.
it's really branched out. But we all kind of at least know of each other, even if we haven't met in person.
Right.
And when you branch out and you go to like other cons and do other things, it's not nearly as close knit. I mean, you still have the people who think cosplay is entirely a competition, and it's not. It is not. It is not a compliment to say you are so much better than that guy. And it's like that's not cool. So, but I mean, as cosplayers grow and adapt, they also learn that it's better to make friends than enemies.
I mean, it's a shared creative space, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of what I was mentioning, trying to bring up before too, with that bringing the game into the real world is there's kind of that shared responsibility. I feel like not only just between the whole cosplay community, but for any content creators, for us as podcasters, for the artists, for anybody who is doing that stuff. There's a little bit of that sort of responsibility to take care of this.
My approach to anything is be kind. I'd much rather, be nice to someone than, be mean to someone who possibly could have been a good friend, so. And if somebody's like mean to me or rude to me, I just, that's it. Cut them off and walk away. I don't bother with it. I don't have the fortitude for that. So.
Right, and not to throw Sid under the bus, and I don't know if she mentioned this story, but we met Sydney at Gen Con in 2016, was it?
I think so.
One or the other.
Yeah.
We went to Gen Con and we had done, all right, when I say we, I mean Jin, because I'm just the meatbag who wears the Jace. I did some fabric painting on some of that stuff and I made a medallion or two, but that's all her, and that coat is a tank. We made it out of faux leather, and we specifically bought a heavy duty machine because, one of her army of sewing machines couldn't handle it, so we're like, all right, let's get this. And there's one part where it's 4 layers of faux leather.
That stuff is thick.
It's gnarly. By the end of the day, my right shoulder actually hurts because it's a good 15 pounds.
It's pretty heavy.
It's
long
not
enough
delicate.
I have to hold it above my head to keep it off the ground.
So we wore. I wore that to Gen Con, and Sid did the same costume. But I think she made hers out of more cloth.
It's a fabric, and she hates it. And so she had commented that she hated that coat, and then one of her friends had seen ours around, and she wasn't even going to come out of the hotel room with it because she was she was upset about it. I was like, but I'm really glad that she did, because we connected over how much we hated that coat.
Yeah, she came up to it and said, I was upset I didn't want to wear it, but I did it anyways, and
it's great.
Now we've forged an incredibly good friendship, and it's because we interpreted the costume in 2 different ways. Part of cosplay is, well, how accurate do I want to be versus how comfortable do I want to be? It's like that triangle. If you can have it fast, you can have it accurate, and you can have it right. And you only get 2 of the 3. It's kind of the same thing, with cosplay. It's like, all right, what are you going to sacrifice? Like, hey, I'm wearing a Johnny, right? What am I sacrificing? I am sacrificing comfort because I'm, warm as heck in this thing. She interpreted it differently, and that's perfectly fine because it's
I still think hers looks great too. So.
I do too, and it's how you want to present it. And now we have forged an incredibly good friendship and partnership with her to do things. And we originally weren't going to come to this one. We were planning on doing like Denver and Atlanta. And she goes, hey, you really got to come to Minneapolis. So we're like, okay, fine. We'll toss those. We'll not do those. We'll come to Minneapolis. And it's just been an incredible experience. It's been so good, and then, because of that, Olivia went to Vegas last year and she didn't know any of us. And now, we just keep fostering this group. It gets stronger. We all have different skills. We all have different abilities, and we all, push that. I mean, she does metalworking. We do 3D modeling and printing. We do all sorts of different parts of fabrication. And it's like, who needs what? I got you covered. Here's how you do it. And that to us is what we want to build, and why, bringing that to Magic and having the, environment accept it and, want to indulge more of it. Look, we know first and foremost the game is paramount, and that's fine, because without the game, where are we? So, I wanted to start playing competitively, realized I didn't have the time, I'd say resources, or really I didn't have the mental capacity to grind that out all the time. So I decided to turn my attention towards this.
That's interesting, and one of the things I go to a lot of literary cons and stuff, so that's really interesting. Lou Anders is the editor of Pyre. It's a science fiction fantasy imprint, one of the biggest independent ones. And one of the things he was saying at a con, like literally talking to another editor, he's like, we're not competition. I can't publish enough books to keep my readers busy, so you have to publish books so that my readers can read your stuff to keep them in the genre. And I think that applies to a lot of stuff in Magic, a lot of content creators and cosplayers. We're not competition because we are stronger together, working together, building those relationships.
Absolutely.
Seeing the same costume done two different ways, we were talking with Sydney and Olivia about that same sort of element, and seeing sort of how we've talked in the past about different perspectives on characters, and you can see that through artists who will do two different art for the same card in the game. Do you feel like that is ever, if you show up to a GP and there's another Ajani or there's another Danitha or something like that, is there a disconnect for you as a cosplayer? How much of this is that performance element of you are acting like you're in the world there, or are you there to present the craft? Are you there to present something for the people? I mean, what's your take on that?
I don't act as much as everyone else, I think. So if I see someone in the same costume, I'm going to go talk to them, and I'm going to be like, so how did you make this? And I made it this way, and this is amazing. And you learn things from each other, from doing different things. The big occasion that I do act, it's more of a joke because Danith is a white knight, so we make all the white knight jokes because it's hilarious, And people take pictures. They're like, "Can you just cut my head off?" And I'm like, I'm a white knight, but sure.
You also talked about sort of the game is paramount. We take from the game to create the costumes. But I'm curious too, what's the decision-making process if you do decide to alter something from the original art or a character description? Have you ever,
Okay, yeah, so, again, back to Jace's awful coat.
I love this
Every
story.
art of that coat is different, and none of it shows the whole thing. So we collected as much of the artwork as we could, and we stared at it, and I actually got halfway through making it, and I go, you know what? This looks like there's a butt flap, which is entirely different from how we were building it. And he's looking at it and goes, you might be right. So we got new fabric and started over. So I've actually made that awful coat twice.
That night involved a lot of
swearing,
alcohol,
unhappiness,
and tears.
But it comes down to when you're looking at artwork, and all the artwork looks different because every artist has their own flair. Every cosplayer is the same thing. We're artists in a different manner, but we're still adding our own thing to everything. So like, okay, Sid's coat is different from his coat, but they're still technically the same coat.
Yeah.
Ours is just more based on, which one did we base it on the most? Max?
No, because she does the gold trim. We didn't do the gold trim one.
We were going to though. We just
we were
never got
going to,
around
and it's like, no, let's not do that. It was a conglomeration, I think, of 2 or 3.
We actually ran into the guy who
I was
designed the
waiting for
coat
this. I've been waiting for this part.
in
Gen Con.
at Gen Con.
What?
Yeah, so he came up to us. He's like, "Oh, somebody told me you were here," and so he wants to get a picture. I'm like, "Oh, sure." And I stand out of the way because I was not in costume. And he looks at me and goes, "So I actually designed this coat, and I have a bone to pick with you, sir, because fabric does not work this way." And he's like, "But you made it." I say, "I did. It is held together by wishes and black magic."
That's the part with costumes that really... Artists have the ability to be free and go, bleep physics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are things
cares?
like, there is no way these things would be practical for wear, use, manufacturing, or whatnot. And you think and go,
Well,
And then they look at you.
That's based on Earth physics.
right, yeah,
To be fair.
yeah, well, touche.
Yeah, we don't know the gravitational
Again,
pull on Ravico
wishes
yet.
and black
Oh,
magic.
Right, and
Now I
look
wanna
at
know
them
space
and
time
go,
continues.
can I just ask, what the were you thinking? When,
Great job, by the way. Self-censoring.
oh yeah, I do it very often. I've only recently started exposing my son to, Daddy's blue side, because kids in school, it's like he's already learned all the words, and the side conversation is, I know you know the words. Here's the important part: learn where and who you can use them around. He's like, okay, but there is that. But it's astounding in how cosplayers go, you know what? I'm gonna find a way to make this work, and then they do.
Yeah.
And that to me is the most mind-blowing part. Her strength is, she can think in 3D, and she'll go, oh, all right, I'll just do this, this, and this. And, she designed the armor. I fabricated it. But she put it together, and I go, wait a minute, she goes, no, if you do it with this curve, no, and I give the German Shepherd, a complete side head tilt, and she goes, let me show you. And then she shows me, and I go, oh, okay, and my brain's like, I still don't get it, man. It's like, and then I'm like, okay, I'll trust you. And then it comes out, and then another cosplayer goes, oh my god, that curve is so on point. I'm going, I had nothing to do with it. I just glued it together and painted it.
So I am curious what the guy who made Jace's coat, what kind of reaction was to all of this. I mean, I love the fact that he sought you out.
He loved it. Like, I don't know if he talked to Sid or not that weekend, but when he came, he was like really, really happy to see it and everything.
Yeah.
He like poked at it and looked at it, and I'm like, yeah, okay.
To me, getting artist recognition and approval is just that to me is penultimate, respect within this community. And should I tell the story about the pecs? There is an artist, and there are pictures out there, so I don't feel bad in revealing her name.
No, it's fine.
Therese Nielsen.
She shared pictures.
Yeah, she shared pictures. Oh my gosh, I can't think of the card that she did. She did art of a Johnny, and we took pictures. And we have pictures. She's like,
she was so fascinated.
And
she's like, you're so soft.
This is stupidly fluffy, and I mean, she sewed in these abs and these, muscles. I mean, these are all, like, really tangible. Yeah.
Hobbs is legit going to pet Matt right now. That's happening.
Amazing.
That's happening.
And when she
I'm mostly
posted,
more of a dog guy.
and when she posted pictures, she's like, the stature and the musculature kind of stuff of this. I'm like, I'm done. I peaked.
Well, that was even before we finished the armor.
Yeah, that was a Johnny Vengeance. Yeah, that's how I branded it. It's a Johnny Vengeance. I made a nice little necklace, and I'm angry. So it's like, dang, I hope people buy this.
And they did, because nobody cares.
Yeah.
They were just like, this looks awesome.
And when artists respect what you've done as a different art medium, that's wild for me. Yeah.
Well, that kind of gets us to a bigger question, too, of general, I guess, community response to the work you guys do. I mean, we talked a little bit about this last episode as well, but we don't have to go into the whole online thing that happened, recently.
Yes.
But
everybody
there
knows
has
that anyway.
been, there's been, a very small but aggressive and belligerent and bullying part of the online community that has responded to cosplay negatively. Do you guys find, I'm assuming from what you're telling us, that's not at all been the case at GPs or cons or any
Absolutely
of that?
not.
And I mean, can you talk a little bit about, how you guys, if you've at all had to deal with that online, and if so, how do you process that for yourself and take care of yourself,
See, we all got called thoughts once,
Yeah.
which was, an experience. But, I mean, in person, we haven't had any problems. Mostly just people coming up to us saying, wow, this is really wild, and it brings, like, a new layer of immersion to the game, and it's like, you guys are awesome. It's like, yes, please. Because the vocal minority is always loud.
Right.
So if we always ask people, like, if they really enjoy seeing the cosplay, just, if you see a feedback survey to fill out, just comment on it.
Yeah.
So they know that, this isn't just being wasted or anything. So it's been good.
Yeah. Because I'd say I'm more on the rarer side, because there's not a ton of male cosplayers in this group. I'd say the one that I've gotten the most negative feedback on is definitely a Johnny. It's different looking, So, I've caught a little bit of online flack for that. A little bit of in person, not too much, but, at this point in my life, I'm like, all right, really? I don't care. If anything, I'm more critical about, how do we fix parts that we don't like? If someone gives us legitimate criticism, I will listen to that all day long. But if someone goes, you suck, you're a cosplayer, you suck. If you don't like cosplay, I respect the heck out of that. Honestly, if you don't think it contributes to the community at large, I can accept that too. I think misconception is people. Some people will say, "This is a massive drain." No, we're not. We're not even close to a drain on, the.
Well, because you guys aren't, just to make sure, you guys aren't paid by Wizards or anything to come here. Like, you come here of your own free will. Nobody buys a plane ticket for you except you guys, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't a sponsored thing. It's not a drain on the community.
Technically,
By
some of us
friend.
are sponsored, but we get
Okay.
product. That's all we get.
Oh, sure.
Right. Yeah, and there are some, I would say, differing levels of what you're doing and how much you're involved with it. Some people kind of like formerly contracted to do some things, and
Specific events, there's been definitely promotional things, but people, to me, it ignores completely the idea that Wizards is a company. And we've talked about this with some of our things, is there's a lot of complaints about things that Wizards does, that people are ignoring the fact that it is what allows the game to keep growing, and it's more than just a game.
Right.
That's why there's something for everybody and why we love Magic.
The best story that we've got from this weekend, and I don't know if it's typical, and I wouldn't say that we're not bringing in thousands of people to play the game, but we ran into a woman who was here for a graduation. She ran into us in our costumes saying, "Hey, what are you here for?" We explained, they're doing a tournament and we do costumes for it and whatnot. She goes, "Oh, that's really cool." Lo and behold, the next day we run into her again. She goes, I went over there and I found someone from the event and they taught us how to play, and now I'm in. We like to be ambassadors, and with ambassadorship comes different levels of it. You're definitely more of an artistic and I'd say creative ambassador. I'm I'm an entertainer who never became an entertainer. So I like to go out, engage. I'll work the prize wall for hours, and I will just heckle the direct heck out of people. It's like, who wants to spend all your tickets with Jake? I'll just carry on, and people are like, can I have? I'm like, I don't know, can you? And so I'll go out and entertain, like, I'll do it. Yeah, and that's what, we want to bring to the community, So, yeah, it's frustrating to see it sometimes because a lot of it becomes nonsensical, non sequitur even, kind of criticisms and, allegations and whatnot. And, at some point it's like, look, I know you're out there, you do you, okay.
Yeah.
And once again, bringing us back kind of to the beginning of this is that acceptance piece. It's kind of like that is the way that it is. We can let that stop our enjoyment, or we can just work around it. I mean, it's still going to bother us.
Yeah.
Once again, it's not a matter of trying to get rid of the feelings or say that the emotions aren't okay to have or be appropriate to have. You're going to have them. Emotions are emotions.
Yeah.
Moving away from even getting people to label emotions is good and bad. Those are categories. It also gets away from the idea, even the positive, negative. I try to teach emotions as helpful and unhelpful. Because it's not the emotion that's a problem, it's what you do in response to that emotion.
Yeah.
And emotions are natural. If I try to tell you, your mother just passed away, you should not feel saddened. Bereavement is not okay. You're like, that's a bad emotion. That's a negative emotion because it makes you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Well,
that doesn't
okay,
make
it makes no sense. It's the question of, do you now withdraw and not do anything, or do you let yourself feel that sadness and then move on and do something?
Yeah, exactly.
It sounds like, what you guys do with that is instead take it, redirect it, and go back into this is why we do what we do. Mm-hmm. So I kind of want to end our episode here with just a last little question. If somebody comes up to you and says, whether it's I want to maybe start getting into cosplay, or whether it asks you like, what is cosplay about and why is it important to Magic in general? What's your elevator pitch? What's your, this is why I do it, why it's important to me?
For me, because I don't play a lot, I have terrible anxiety playing games. And it's because of, these vocal idiots at local game stores. I cosplay because I feel like this is what I can do for the community. And then there are other people who have come up to me at a GP saying, I tried to play, but I just can't do it. And, so it's nice to see that there are other things going on and you don't have to just be like in the main event or, here to discuss Magic in all cards. It's like, there's other facets of it. There's art. There is the performance. There's a lot of things going on. So to me, that's it. It's inclusion.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I tried to start play competitively, just couldn't do it. So getting in this way, and I still want to contribute to the environment. I still want to contribute to the community. I still play now and then, and sometimes if you decide, hey, I want to learn, and you just play casual, and you have like a group of just 3 or 4 friends, and that's it, and that's all you ever play with, that's perfectly fine too. You're still engaging with it. And if you never played a game in your life, and all you want to do is appreciate the art and expand on your artistic talents or, writing, whatever, it adds something to the community. And that, I always keep looking at some of these GPs and go, to make it more truly like a con. And it's difficult. It's extremely difficult because, again, the game is paramount. If there is no game, you can't have a con. So you have that stuff for the people that are like, hey, I just want to come, I want to play, I don't care about interacting with cosplayers, I don't care about interacting with artists. That element exists and should exist because the game does need to survive. However, there are people like me who go, I'm never going to have the time or mental, stamina to play, like 9-10 rounds. I just can't do it. And what can we do to make this a more, open environment for you to engage in and have, and this is where it gets difficult and legally difficult, craftspeople who go, okay, I made all this stuff, can I not, so whatever, but it needs to be celebrated, and there's some companies that embrace that much more than others. That's what I love about Magic. It's really a different universe. We do things from other properties. We love Overwatch.
Oh yeah.
But Blizzard is just massive. I mean, it's gargantuan, But there's always, games where you can play, like FPS games or, capture. Like, this is just its own beast.
Thank you two so much
It's
for
a
coming
cool
on.
life.
It has been
Absolutely.
incredible.
It's a gruel life, is
Pun
it?
counter at 4.
Is it a gruel life?
That's our show. You can find Matt and Jin on Twitter at Jackal Costuming. Matt can be found at Scrapper Ferret on Twitter, and Jin can be found at Scratch Kitty. You can find the podcast at Goblin Lore Pod on Twitter, or email us any questions, comments, or concerns at goblinlorepodcast@gmail.com. Joe Redeman can be found at Findhorn on Twitter. Hobbs Q can be found at Hobbs Q, and Alex Newman can be found at Alexander Newm. The Goblin Lore Podcast is a member of the Geek Therapy Network. Geek Therapy is a network of like-minded content creators in a variety of nerd spaces that seek to use hobbies and gaming as a way to understand how our minds and communities work. For more information, check them out at Geek Therapy on Twitter or geektherapy.org. Thank you all for listening, and remember, goblins, like snowflakes, are only dangerous in numbers.